Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today I want to go over another chapter, another part of the Hager's book. So it's time to hit the books. Now, where we left off last time was the Bond bread, because I was doing pre-war. So I was going to follow up and start with the Tip Top and the Bowman and Leafs and all that, but I thought I'd go back, all the way back to the beginning of baseball card sets and start right from the first real sets. And I'll go back and hit the Leaf and the 48 Bowmans and all that later. But this is, these are not going to be the first cards, ever made, because, the first ones were the Peck and Snyder, and there were some cabinet cards and stuff like that that were actually also made during those days. But for the most part, what this book shows are sets that were made back in the early days. So this, and there's a few that were in 1886, including the old Judge, and we'll get to that. But, so these are kind of alphabetical order, not necessarily the first set issued, but the first year that sets were issued was in 1886, baseball card sets. And the first one here is the Lone Jack, the 1886 Lone Jack, the N370. And we'll show you those cards. And all of these are going to be extremely rare. And these were issued in 1886 by the Lone Jack Cigarette Company of Lynchburg, Virginia. This is one of the rarest of the 19th century sport card sets. The set consists of 13 starting players for the St. Louis Browns championship team. The cards are sepia tone photographs enlarged from the more popular N172 Old Judge series. So you can see these pictures actually were similar to the Old Judge pictures that are on the, we'll get to those. The front of the more popular instances here. So the front of the card features a studio pose of the player with Lone Jack cigarette in script around the head. And you can see how that is, the Lone Jack cigarettes goes right around, kind of like somebody wrote it on there. And it says the bottom of the card shows the player's name followed by Lone Jack Cigarettes, Lynchburg, Virginia. The reverse is blank. The owner and catcher for the team was Chris Vander Aar. And Chris Vander is Hall of Famer. The cards are printed on crude, brittle pressboard that crack very easily. So these are very easily, they're thick, but they are very, very brittle. Photos are glued to the brittle cardboard backs. And these are 1.5 by 2.5, which is pretty much the standard size for the tobacco cards back in the day. And this particular set has a set of 13 cards. That's all there is. And the big ones, of course, are the Comiskey, called the Commie Comiskey, which is Charles Comiskey, and the Chris Vander Aar rookie card, supposedly rookie card there. Those are really the biggest ones in the set here. And like it says on here, he wrote on here that I hope you're lucky enough to find one card, let alone a collection. So that's how difficult these are to find. They're extremely difficult, and they're just extremely rare. And here's another one that is right in the same vein as the last one we talked about. Very difficult, very rare. But these are a lot more beautiful because these don't have a blank background like many of these. Many of the 1800 cards have blank background. So this is the 1886 Old Judge, the N167. So these are the N167, and these were the first cards that were issued by Goodwin and Company. And again, these are 1.5 by 2.5, and it's a set of 12 cards. And in 1886, the first cards that, issued by a Goodwin and Company of New York, which was the parent firm of Old Judge Cigarettes. So Mr. Goodwin owned Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes. And in this case, he produced the Old Judge cards, the first ones. And they featured players from the New York National League clubs of the period. So it was the New York National League. There are 5 Hall of Famers among the 12 known cards. The fronts feature a woodcut sepia-toned photo of the ball player in a studio pose. In the top left-hand corner is the name Old Judge in Old English script. Well, it's in the top. And at the bottom, I guess in different players, but it's right on the top, it says Old Judge and in the script there. And then, at the bottom is the player's name, position, and team. The reverse features 2 different horizontal advertisements. And you can see the advertisement. That is really cool, the way they did that. See those pictures there, how they did that. Just love the back there. And that's the kind of the logo for Old Judge that was used in all the future things, products and things like that they did many years ago. And so the photos are glued onto the cardboard backs. Again, these are actual photos that were glued onto the cardboards. Because the cards are printed on thin paper stock, these are much thinner than the last ones, they're difficult to find in grades higher than a 5. So who are the Hall of Famers here? Like it says here, this is one of the sets that has a lot of good Hall of Famers. And it has Roger Connor, it has Buck Ewing, Tim Keefe, Monty Ward, and Mickey Welch. So some really, really incredible players. It says that the largest known hoard was a dozen pieces that were sold at Sotheby's in 1991. So these are extremely, it says again, a very rare series. And one day I'd like to own one of these Old Judges and 167 cards. It's a pretty tough set. Moving on, and we go to a very popular set and a lot easier to find. And this is one of the ones that, of all of the sets in the 1800s, the 19th century, the Allen and Ginters are the ones that were printed the most. And if you compare those, and we'll get to the Goodwin Champion set later, which is very similar to this type of set, which is a multi-sport set. They were about 25% of the, compared to Allen and Ginter, only 25% of the population, a quarter of is what was printed for the Goodwin Champions. But the Allen and Ginter was the first one to come out with the multi-sport set in 1887. And they're beautiful cards. And this is the N28. And they were issued in 1887. And this is the first set by the Allen and Ginter Company of Richmond, Virginia. It is also the first tobacco set issued in quantity. See, that's what it says there. It was issued in quantity. The front features a centered color studio litho of the players on thick white pressboard paper stock. At the bottom is the player's name, followed by Allen and Ginter Cigarettes, Richmond, Virginia. The reverse features a complete and correct checklist. It says other publications have incorrectly listed the players in alphabetical order. At the top of the back, in Old English script, and the words World Champion followed by the checklist. The set features 50 of the World Champion. These are sports, different sports, including 10 baseball players and 40 of other sports. The set includes boxer John L. Sullivan, Buffalo Bill, Annie Oakley, and many others. The pictures are glued to a brittle cardboard backs. Proofs are known that are on thin stock paper. So Again, these are beautiful cards, and you can see how it says the world champions. And if you look at it, it shows you all of the ball players and the different types of boxers and things that are in the set, how they're listed in the set. And here, you know, they list them alphabetically here. So again, these are 1.5 by 2 3/4, so it's a little bit bigger than the ones that I've shown you before that were 2.5. But it's a beautiful set, and this one in 1887 has a lot of Hall of Famers. And the big cards there are the Cap Anson, the Charles Comiskey, the Tim Keefe, the Clarkson, and the biggest card, their second biggest, is the King Kelly, the Mike Kelly rookie cards here, and then the John Ward. So those are the big ones. You have the John L. Sullivan also, and you have the Buffalo Bill and Annie Oakley. So, but the big ones again are the Cap Anson, the King Kelly, the Comiskey, the Tim Keefe, John Ward, and that's pretty much it. But it's a beautiful set. It says it's one of the most beautiful and popular early 19th century sets. It can be collected in 2 ways, the 10 baseball players or the 50 card set. And it says it's the most popular early 19th century set. And again, you can see that he's handled quite a few of those. And these, you know, I would consider this more kind of like these and the other Allen and Ginters, which we're going to get to here, as the kind of the T206 type. Well, no, because you got the other kind. But anyway, we're moving on to the next. You know, they were produced a little more than the rest of these cards here. So the Buckner Gold Coin, that's also 1887, and that's the N284. And these, some people don't like these because it's an illustration and it really doesn't look really a lot like the player. But you know, they're one of the more reasonable cards that you can, the affordable cards. And these were issued, this is the 1887 Buckner Gold Coin N284. And they're 1 3/4 by 3, so they're a little bit bigger than the other cards, and it's a set of 143 cards. And it said they were issued by D. Buckner and Company for their gold coin brand of chewing tobacco. So these were in chewing tobacco. This set contains cards with many varieties, including non-sports cards, including actors, fire chiefs, jockeys, police inspectors. And the set is not among the most popular with collectors because the drawings do not represent the actual players. They were generic litho line drawings. The front of the cards, which feature action poses by the player, at the bottom is the player's name and team, and there are 2 different backs, one for baseball and the other for actors and non-sport. And it says each card advised the collector to save the wrapper so they can be redeemed for prizes. Blank backs are known to exist, and the cards were pasted on an extra thick pressboard paper stock. The photos are glued to the brittle cardboard backs. So you can see some of these, who are some of the big stars in this set. And of course, it's going to be the Cap Anson. You know, you have the Dan brothers and the Comiskey and the Clarkson. So those are going to be the tough one, the more expensive one in this particular set. You know, mainly the Cap Anson and Dan brothers are pretty more desirable. Of course, Comiskey also. So these, it says, one of the most difficult sets to put together. This is one of the largest color litho sets of the 19th century. You know, so it is not an easy one to complete, but they're out there. It really, you do see those really quite a bit, actually, compared to some of the other ones. And, oh, here's the rest of the list. I'm sorry about that. I forgot the rest of the list. I'm wondering, where's the Kelly? Where's the other guys? Yeah, there's the Buck Ewing is another one of the big cards in the set, along with the King Kelly and the Tim Keefe. and the old Haas Radburn, and you got Sam Thompson and a few other guys on there, the Chris Van Der Ey and the Monty Ward. So those are some of the other big players in that Bugner gold coin, which is it says it here, we'll go back to it here. It says Cap Anson, Brothers, Clarkson, Comiskey, Roger Connor, Buck Ewing, Tim Keefe, O'Rourke, Haas Ramberg, and the rest of the dudes there. So, moving on to some rarer stuff here is this. The 1887 4 base hits. And these are super rare. If you ever see one, I think I've maybe seen one in person at the National, that's about it. These were the 1887 4 base hits. They were issued in 1887 either by the August Beck and Company, producers of Yum Yum, or the Charles Gross and Company, which were the producers of Kalamazoo bats. And both Yum Yum and Kalamazoo cards are extremely rare. The 4 base hit cards are among the rarest in this book, with less than 100 cards known today. 11 players are represented thus far. The card fronts are sepia-toned studio photos of the players. The team name is usually at the top. The bottom has the player's name and position, followed by smoke 4 base hits and 4 for 10 cents. The cards are blank backed and there are no known complete sets. The daily card is actually Billy Sunday, an evangelist. Extremely rare, with less than 2 to 5 appearing on the market. So again, one of the rarest 19th century cards, and some of the big name here you can see are of course the King Kelly card, Mickey Welch, and the Buck Ewing. It's only 11 cards, and the big one is that one that you see right here, that Kelly catcher card. That's one of the dream cards I would love to have one day. And it says one of the rarest. It says, I do not believe you'll find one, but if you do, purchase at any price. Yeah, that's what I always say. If you find a rare card like that, purchase at any price, because you may never see it again. So here, if you've got the money. Some of these are too much for me. Gypsy Queen, 1887, AAA-1. They were issued in 1887 by Goodwin and Company of New York. This set employs the same studio photographs as the old Judge N172 series. At the top of the card, it says Gypsy Queen, and then you can see it has the player's name there, and then at the bottom, the player's name, the position, and the team, followed by Goodwin and Company, New York, and cigarettes. Currently, there are 33 players known, but more are still expected to surface. One of the two sizes, the more common, are the 1.5 by 2.5, which is more the standard size of a tobacco card. And then there's a large size, which is extremely rare and next to impossible to find. So there's only 60 cards in total that are known to exist today, which is 20 times more than the smaller variety. So the larger cards are identical in design, they're just a little bit bigger. And these, again, they're printed on brittle, thick pressboard paper stock, and they're glued to the back, and the backs are blank. And some of the big name in this set is, again, the Hall of Famers. You got the Dan Brothers in there. You got a couple of different versions of the Dan Brother. You have the Charles Comiskey, you have the Roger Connor, and you have the Buck Ewing. It says the small sizes, says very tough to acquire, with 2 or 3 sets are known. It says a very rare type, so even to buy a common if you can find one. So that's the Gypsy Queen, 1887. And let's move on to the rest of the set here, and let's see if I can show you the rest of the guys in this set here. So you have the Put Galvin, and then of course you got the Tim Keefe, a few Tim Keefes, and the King Kelly, which usually the King Kellys are going to be the more expensive cards in these 1800s, along with the Cap Anson. And the reason for that is because King Kelly was the Babe Ruth of the day. I mean, King Kelly, if you've heard of the play or the poem Casey at the Bat, that was King Kelly. King Kelly was Casey at the time. And he was the highest paid player and so on. So anyway, that's a little bit about that. Again, you have some other players in the set. You have the Buck Ewing in there. And this is the large set. The large set is much more expensive. So you see how the difference in price, 10 times the prices of the large one versus the small one. And you have Thompson and all that. It says one of the rarest card series in this book, especially in the large size. Even the small size is quite rare. I would purchase the following Hall of Famers: Dan Brothers, Roger Connors, Buck Ewing, Pud Galvin, Tim Keefe, King Kelly, Tommy McCarthy, Sam Thompson, Monty Ward, and Chris Van Anderen, who was the owner of the team. And his cards are very expensive also. Next is another one of these, very similar to the last one that we saw with the 4 base hits. Another rare issue is the Kalamazoo Bats, 1887 Kalamazoo Bats. And this one, again, another one of those very, very rare issues, the N690. And this is a set of 58 cards. They're 2 1/4 by 4. So they are bigger than the standard tobacco cards. They were issued in 1887 by Charles Gross and Company of Philadelphia. This is one of the most difficult sets in the book to acquire. The series depicts sepia-toned photos of the players from 4 teams. 2 from the Giants and the Metropolitans, Giants and the Mets, and 2 from Philadelphia, the A's and the Phillies. The front of the card can feature a single player or an action 2-player photo. At the bottom is the player's name and team appear in a white border, and below the word Smoke Kalamazoo Bats. And the bats is big, like you see in the big bats. There are 58 known varieties in this set because the series can be redeemed for premiums or prizes. As the ad on the left shows, cards from the series are extremely rare. Most of the cards with ads on the backs were redeemed for prizes, while others were blank. So the cards with the ad backs were 5 times rarer and so for twice the price, because those were redeemed for prizes, and you could see the cards there and how what they looked like there. They were redeemed for prizes, so they're pretty rare. So moving on to the set here, a little bit about the set here, some of the players there, and basically, you have the Buck Ewing, the Roger Connor, the Tim Keefe, you have Jim O'Rourke, Robbie Robinson, Monty Ward, and Harry Wright, who was the manager of the teams there. So you don't have a few of the other guys in there. You don't have the Cap Ansons or the King Kelly, but you do have a lot of other Hall of Famers in this particular set. So moving on to another set here, and this set is something that, either you love it or you hate it. It's the scraps. And they're out there, and they do have, collectors, but they're more like die cuts. 1887 scraps. It was issued anonymously in 1887. The set is similar to the 1895 Mayo die cut. So this is the first die cut ones that were actually done. The set was produced to commemorate the 1886 World Series playoffs between these 2 teams. And there's 18 cards in the total set, and they're 2 by 3, but really they're just, not really 2 by 3 size, but it's a die cut. And it says that these embossed color enamel player busts were from an album of punch outs. So they were from an album. When punched out of their albums, they were usually mostly to decorate scrap albums, and the brown glue used at the time does not dissolve easily, which accounts for the residue of paper often found clinging to the backs. So there's 18 players, 9 from the American League St. Louis Browns and 9 from the National League Detroit Wolverines, which again were the champions at the time. And again, it's 2 by 3 instead of 18. The big players there are the Dan Brothers. Let me go ahead and show you a little bit better there. The Dan Brothers, the Charles Comiskey, Wilbur Robinson, and the Sam Thompson. And then it says they are unique and extremely rare. And they're, again, very tough to find, but not that tough. They may have been tough back then, but you could still see those. I see those in auctions. They're just not as popular as some of these others. And now you get to the big boy. The 1887 to 1890 N172, the Old Judge. This is the T206 of the 19th century, and it is really the true monster. This is the true monster, because even if you do, I mean, there's just so many variations that it's, you know, kind of when you put together all the backs of the T206, well, this, instead of having backs, because they don't, they're blank backs, every year they produce these cards, 1887, 88, 89, and 90. They change the pose, they change the look of the card, so there's different variations in that realm. So let's talk about the N172 Old Judges. They were issued by Goodwin and Company of New York between 1887 and 1890. These cards were inserted in packs of Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes, and were the first series of any real length issued until the T206 set in 1909. Players from almost all of the 40 major and minor league teams were represented in this massive set. The cards were reissued each year, some with dates, some without. Some were numbered and some were not. Some had handwritten names and some had printed names, causing many different variations. Some players have up to 17 different card variations. The cards were created with sepia tone photographs that were pasted to thick, brittle paperboard stock. The front of the cards exhibit a studio pose of the player. At the top says Old Judge or Gypsy Queen cigarettes. Appear at the bottom of the player's name, position, and team, and on most cards, Goodwin and Company, New York. You can see that there, the name, Goodwin Company, Old Judge. Some had a number, some did not. The reverse was blank. Over 520 different players are known to exist, with new ones being discovered each year. The set is perhaps the most difficult to collect, with over 3,646 different cards known today. Currently, there are no known complete sets, including variations. The dotted ties and Browns championships are the most popular in the series. The name in brackets is the name that appear on the card. So let's take a look at this. They're 1.5 by 2.5, so they are the standard tobacco card sizes. And there's a set of 561 different players with 3,646 variations. Crazy if you think about it. But the funny thing is that some players, there's 17 of them, and some players, there's 1 or 2. So of those. So, and this book again is not truly complete with all the variations. So it's very difficult. For example, I'll give you a good example. Here's Cap Anson, right? Now there are actually 2 Cap Anson cards, one in uniform and one in a suit. This is the one in the suit. The one in uniform, there's only like 2 known to exist, and it's one of the most expensive cards in the 19th century cards. So you've got a Dan Brothers, you got a Buck Ewing. This is a double player card with Buck Ewing. I mean, we can go through this set for a while, but I'm going to skip through some of the highlights here. You have the Comiskey, a few Comiskey cards there. Roger Connor, you got Ed Delahanty. Sorry about the crease. I creased this book. I've looked at this so much that this page is already all creased up on me. You got the Ed Delahanty, you got the Hugh Duffy, Buck Ewing, Pud Galvin, you got Clark Griffith, and Billy Hamilton, which is also an extremely popular card. And then you've got, you know, and again, this goes on, you know, with a few 561, but it doesn't have every single pose. It just kind of gives you a guide here, you know. You have Dummy Hoy, which was the first guy that was deaf, couldn't hear. You have Tim Keefe in there with a few ones. You have, of course, King Kelly with a few different ones. You have just a bunch of Kid Nichols, also another one of the big Hall of Famers down here, Kid Nichols. And sorry, I'm not giving you a good look at this, but you know, it would take forever to go through each one of these things, these cards. But this is really the set that has all of the big name Hall of Famers, the 1887 to 1890 and 172. Again, it's 561 different players, and all of the players in the major leagues at that time, and in the minor leagues and any leagues, they did appear during that 4-year period in the Old Judge sets. Now, the Old Judge also has cabinet cards, which were rare and they're bigger than the regular cards. And there's 385 to the cabinet cards, and these were really cards that were you could redeem them with little coupons that also came in the Old Judge cards. And I have some of those coupons. I've shared those in the past, and they would put the tobacco card with the little coupon, and you gather up so many coupons and you could request one of the big cabinet cards. And these were issued again in between 1888 and 1890, and they're large premium cards that were available by exchanging Old Judge and Doghead brand cigarette coupons. This is the first large premium set issued until the T3, which is the T3 is I forgot the name of that right now, issued in 1911. Players were almost all 40, the major leagues and the minor league teams were representative in this set, and the massive cabinet set. The front of these cards have black and white sepia tone studio photographs of the player from the N172 Old Judge set. So they're the same photos that they used, they just enlarged them and put them on a bigger thing. And you can see they're 4.5 by 6.5 inches. So they're cabinet size cards. They're pretty big cards. And again, there's 385 different players known to exist. And you know, this is it says here, give you a good look at these cabinet cards. Give you a good look at some of this. And it's got the Cap Anson, which you saw there is the biggest card in the set, with all these other Hall of Famers, Buck Ewing, Dan Brothers, you got Roger Connor, John Clarkston, and so on. And I'll show you the rest, but it says it's the largest cabinet set in this book. You have to have deep pockets, you know, to obtain that. And again, the big names are going to be the bigger names at the time that also appeared on the Old Judge cards. You got the Ed Delahanty here, you got the Hugh Duffy, you got the Buck Ewing, Pud Galvin, the Billy Hamilton, Kid Gleason, Dummy Hoy, and Tim Keefe, and of course you got the King Kelly here, and the Connie Mack rookie card, which is like the most expensive on that. So that's kind of it for the 1888 through 1890. And oh, we got some more of the cabinet cards. Sorry about that. Yep, it's 385 card set. So you have again Kid Nichols, Jim O'Rourke, Old Hoss Radbourn, Billy Sunday, Sam Thompson, Monty Ward, and Mickey Welch. Here you're right. So this video is getting long, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right there with the Old Judge cabinet cards. And from that, we're going to follow up and see if we can get some of the finish up with the 1800s. And we're going to be covering the Allen and Ginters, the Goodwin Champions, and the rest of the guys that are going to be in this book, the Young Youngs, the HFS, still got a lot of 1800 cards to cover, so we'll get to some of those in the next video. So thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. I hope you learned something in these videos, and keep watching. I'm gonna have the rest of the series, and we'll see what we can learn together going through this book. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day. It's Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Thanks for watching.